Watch this.
Somebody needs you. And somebody needs you too. So don't ever stop. Don't ever stop trying to help.
A group in Mountain Home is trying to turn grief into action. We'll take you inside one of their meetings as they explain why the hardest conversations are the ones worth having. It's been 24 years since the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Today, we're taking a look back at how the impact was far more widespread than Ground Zero.
Wait.
If you've heard it once, you've likely heard it 1,000 times. But in this world of AI, you might be surprised to know there's a face behind that voice, keeping Ada County walkers from walking into traffic. With a population just below 20,000 people, Mountain Home is far from being one of Idaho's smallest cities. But it is small enough to feel the impact of a community in pain. After 2 students in the military town died by suicide, parents and students tried to address the stigma that is usually barnacled to the topic of mental health. They acknowledged having those conversations are hard, but they need to be happening more often, which is why they formed a group to do that. Espen Schumpert was able to attend one of their get-togethers where bridging that generational gap and hearing might lead to healing.
We have too many suicides in Mountain Home. Too many. One is too many.
In the city of Mountain Home, community members are working toward change.
There's no perfect way to figure out how to work with bullying and suicide. If there were, we wouldn't have it.
Rod Dudley says a need for more resources and conversations about suicide and bullying has been needed for years.
The community of you going out into the community will lead us to more conversation.
Dudley lost his own daughter, Megan, to suicide about 11 years ago.
I like to keep her alive, not only in my heart, but to other people.
Back in October, a 13-year-old student at Mountain Home Junior High named Nick died by suicide.
Nobody, especially a child, should ever have to feel like there is no way out except death.
I'd rather lose everything over and over than lose my child. He was my first. He made me mom. He taught me how to be a better mom.
His mother, Sunny Flowers, says Nick struggled with his mental health for years and was often a victim of bullying.
For Nick, I ended up having to get him into therapy almost twice a week. It's like crying every day. Constant texts. I have so many texts, Mom. The food, it's hurting my stomach. I'm throwing up. Can you come pick me up from school? Can you come get me?
Flowers says Nick eventually stopped talking about the bullying or telling his parents who was involved.
If school would have been less scary, I just know he would have flourished. But peers getting away with what they do ruins it for not just my son. I can only imagine how many other children feel this alone.
When we spoke to her just days after Nick's passing, she began calling for change.
I'm just looking for better mental health care for the children in our school district. I want available assistance to be there for the children who feel like no one's hearing them. We'll deal with it. And that is a common phrase. I want more than we'll deal with it.
At Nick's funeral, hundreds of people showed up wearing orange anti-bullying shirts. For Dudley, who was in the crowd, it sparked an idea for a new group.
There's a gap between city officials and school officials, and that gap is the parents in between. So bridging the gap, although it's a very common phrase, we're bridging the gap between all of those aspects.
Since November, Bridging the Gap Support Group has been a space for parents, students, and school officials to be all in the same room and share how they feel.
It was like, okay, something has to be done. Starting a conversation, continuing the conversation, talk about the hard things.
In January, a second student died by suicide, prompting students at the high school to wear green for mental health awareness, further cementing the want for more resources.
It's very clear that people have been wanting change.
Laura Falk is an Idaho mental health counselor in both Boise and Mountain Home.
I feel like it's so different up here in Boise that, people are very open to talk about it and we normalize it. And so, maybe Mountain Home has a little catching up to do.
But this year, she's started to see a shift.
There's always been a stigma. And so people are now leaning into it and they're getting curious and they're asking questions and they're trying to learn more, which is such a healthy step to take, because when we know better, we can do better.
Each Bridging the Gap meeting, which is held every other month, Dudley tries to bring in motivational or informational speakers like Randy Lucas, a counselor at Richard McKenna Charter School in Mountain Home.
Prevention is probably the secret ingredient to trying to help us stop this tragedy that's happened.
Casey Mann, a senior at Mountain Home High School, and Jacob Jameson, a senior at Richard McKenna, attended the most recent Bridging the Gap meeting in August, and they say they're glad to see more resources popping up.
Within the town, back when that suicide happened in October, it was a big kind of push that we really need to start talking about mental health more openly.
They hope as the group continues to meet, it will bring people together, open conversations, and help shine an importance of people being aware of their actions.
Their actions, their words, what they do can hurt others mentally and physically.
For Dudley, he hopes Bridging the Gap is just the start for change.
If you don't sweep it under the rug, then it's going to be exposed and things can change.
After October, students in the Mountain Home School District also started their own initiative to create more awareness around teen mental health called You Are More. The next Bridging the Gap meeting is next month on October 11th. We'll have more information on where you can find all of that on our website at ktb.com. But the group has had some school officials in the room before.
Okay.
This next upcoming meeting, they're hoping to get maybe the principal at the junior high, some of the counselors at the junior high. Again, this group has been about going on for a year. Every other month. So really only met 6 times still creating those conversations and still opening opportunities for that to happen.
I couldn't help but notice that the Mountain Home School District was not part of this story, and the mother mentioned it, that she was been told many times, we'll deal with it.
Yeah.
What have they been saying about this?
As you saw, this has kind of been something we've been working on for a year, and it's been hard to communicate with them and get answers. I know after the first initial suicide in October, there was some more support in place, and again in January after that. But large-term initiatives, we really haven't been able to get answers or to see what they're doing.
As he mentioned, bridging the gap, not just between the parents and the kids, but the parents, the kids, and the school district. All right. Thank you very much, Aspen. We'll see how this plays out. Well, if you or someone you know is in need of help, you can reach out. So please do so. Call or text the number 988. That is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Help is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Never forget was the mantra born out of 9/11. And if you were alive that day and you saw it happen, you likely remember the feeling of uncertainty that clouded the country. On that day in 2001, a Tuesday, 19 terrorists hijacked 4 commercial airplanes flying out of Boston, D.C., and New Jersey. 2 of those planes, United Flight 175 and American Airlines Flight 11, crashed into the World Trade Center towers. Another American Airlines flight crashed into the Pentagon, and a United Flight 93, came down in a field in Pennsylvania after passengers overtook the hijackers. In total, the attacks killed 2,977 people. More than 2,700 of them died in the Twin Towers collapse. It's been said the world stood still that day, watching it happen and how we might react. You might also remember, within hours, all air travel across the United States was grounded. At the time, nobody knew for how long. In today's 208 Redial, KTVB's Anita Kasey dropped by the Boise airport as outbound travelers tried to figure out their fate.
The Boise airport slowly wakes up to the day after the worst day in aviation history. The tower lights come on, police get in place. The difficult task of getting stranded passengers home begins.
We don't know whether we'll get out today or whether it'll be tomorrow.
This is real frustrating because we're stuck here. We live in Wisconsin and we're just ready to go home.
They're letting some people in, but usually it's about 8 o'clock is when they're going to open.
Weary travelers begin to check in early, hoping just one flight will go out with room for them.
You would be standby though the whole way.
Got to get home, but the other alternative is waiting 2 more days till the 14th and then trying to fly out, and you don't know what's going to happen the next 2 days. So the closer you can get to home now, the better we are.
These newlyweds are supposed to be in Florida.
So we've got to get out today, so
it's a belated honeymoon, so we don't know if we're going to go out.
We might be on standby all day, so it's just hard telling.
Then the news.
As it stands right now, all flights have been canceled.
All Delta flights all day are canceled.
they going to fly this evening at all?
We don't know for sure when it's going to open back up.
The Shaw's call to postpone their honeymoon cruise.
And what if we can't make it down there because of the flights?
Only to find out it's non-refundable, no exceptions.
We thought we'd get a rain check at least or money back.
This man feels as though he has a rain check on life. He's vacationing here.
I'm a lucky guy, you know. I work at Twin Tower too. I work in the Twin Tower.
You work in the tower?
Yeah.
What floor do you work on?
107.
All, no more.
I lost a job and I lost my friend, you know.
He wants to get home to see the horror for himself, even if it has to be tomorrow.
You're going to leave Salt Lake City at 4:20, and you arrive in New York at New York time at 10:40.
Despite the delays, groundings, and cancellations, these passengers aren't angry. They know many others have more important concerns.
It's very frustrating, yeah, but it's been a terrible thing that's happened, you know, and we have to do what they tell us to do. That's the only thing we can do.
We're sitting here waiting for a plane, but they're sitting and waiting to find out whether they've got loved ones alive, dead, what's happened to them, you know.
You might remember the planes are grounded for 2 days following those terrorist attacks. They would pick back up again the next day after that story first aired. And of course, air travel would change forever with the creation of the TSA after that. On the 91st floor of Tower 2, that would be the South Tower, there were 130 employees of the Washington Group International, which was a Boise-based engineering firm. We weren't aware of it at the time, but of those 130 people in that office, 13 of them did not make it out alive. Now, 24 years later, of course, we still pause every year to honor the lives of those lost. Today, Nampa and Caldwell Fire Departments held ceremonies this morning to honor those victims, especially those of first responders. The fire departments paid their respects to the firefighters and first responders who died, beginning and ending the ceremony with a prayer.
Wait.
It's nearly everywhere in Ada County, helping the visually impaired stay safe on the street corner. But the voice behind the button might have been a mystery until now. What about your voice? What do you think about what we're talking about on the 208? Send us your thoughts, your theories, or your queries to 208-321-5614. Just make sure you include your name and the hashtag the 208. And remember, Clean and Clever makes sure is eligible to be shared at the end of the show. All right, think of the most distinctive voices you've ever heard, like James Earl Jones as Darth Vader, or Dan LaFontaine from those, those movie trailers, In a World, that guy, David Attenborough, or Peter Coyote in any documentary. How about Nancy Cartwright as Bart Simpson, or Sam Elliott telling us what's for dinner? Oh, you know. Okay, so the voice you're about to hear may not occupy the rare air of those I just mentioned, but more ground level. If you've ever tried to cross the street in Ada County, you've likely heard it, and now you're about to meet the man behind it. Quick, what's the most repetitive sound you might hear downtown? Go ahead, I'll wait. Yeah, you're right, it's probably this, but it's also this.
Wait.
There are 465 signaled intersections across Ada County.
Wait.
A lot of those are downtown.
Wait.
So multiply that by 4 corners and 2 directional buttons on each corner.
Wait.
That adds up to a lot of...
Wait.
But there's one guy who's responsible for bringing them to life.
It is me.
Bob Parsley is an electronic signal tech with the Ada County Highway District. And it's his job to program the push button.
Now I'm teaching it how to talk.
The accessible pedestrian system, they call it.
They do send them out with generic messages that say just wait to cross or walk sign is on to cross.
But ACHD is trying to personalize them.
Wait to cross South 16th Street at West Grove Street.
By adding street names.
There you have it.
And by now, you might be wondering,
wait.
Bob sounds familiar.
Wait.
Where have I heard Bob before?
Wait to cross West Grove Street at South 16th Street.
Well, not only is it Bob's job to install the software,
wait to cross 16th Street at Grove Street,
but also to create it.
16th Street walk sign is on to cross.
For the last 7 years, Bob's been the voice of ACHD crosswalks.
Warning lights activated.
Because,
vehicles
well,
may not stop.
his voice.
Cross with caution. My other job, I'm a singer-songwriter. I know my way around a mixer, and that was that.
And Bob being bossy, well, that can be heard when someone pushes one of the more than 1,500 APS buttons in Ada County.
A bunch, yeah.
Which makes Bob's voice one of the most well-known in Ada County.
Unfortunately, I'm everywhere.
And the irony is, on the job, Bob often finds himself following his own directions.
Wait.
Takes just a few minutes.
Safe to say, most people have gotten used to Bob keeping them safe.
Wait.
Except for maybe one, his ex-wife.
She doesn't like to come downtown shopping anymore because I'm still telling her what to do.
Well, she may have to get used to it.
There you have it.
Because even after he retires, Bob's voice will still be here.
Maybe.
On repeat.
Maybe it will.
Wait.
On repeat, of course. Okay, so Bob is in the process of upgrading the modulated message that you hear when you do push that button. Some of them, as you heard, just say wait. That's it. And you heard that a lot, obviously. But the newer APS systems say a little bit more. And federal rules now say they have to say wait twice, so they're being upgraded. And of the 465 Ada County intersections with a signal, 298 of them have that APS voice system, and it's Bob. And we're told that means there are more, or I guess there are, more than 1,562 of those buttons. There are 1,562 of those buttons out there that when you press them, it's going to cue Bob to tell you to wait.
Well, it has been a pretty quiet and pretty pleasant Thursday so far across the Treasure Valley, but Central Mountains have been getting hit with storms throughout the day, enough so that McCall has picked up nearly half an inch of rain just since midnight. Not just rain, also some hail. Roger texted us this photo of marble-sized hail. You can see beyond his hand here, just a blanket of it, almost looking like snow up in McCall. This was around 3 o'clock this afternoon. So stormy conditions there. And if we look at Cascade, McCall's up here. You can see just south of Cascade. Still, we're getting those lightning strikes rolling into the Boise Mountains right now as well. There's a flash flood watch that is in place for the Boise and West Central Mountains because of the expected heavy rain through 9 o'clock tonight. We're also starting now to see some of those storms descending the mountains, reaching for maybe the foothills here in Boise, and more storms firing off over the Owyhees as well. But for the most part, we do expect those storms to kind of dance around the Treasure Valley through the rest of our Thursday evening. Can't rule out a spot shower, maybe a rumble of thunder in the Boise area, though I don't think it's likely. Then by the time we wake up tomorrow morning, things should be quiet. Another quick little round of pop-up storms possible tomorrow evening as that system exits off to the northeast. For the Treasure Valley, to wrap up our work week tomorrow, I think things stay pretty pleasant. It will warm up just a little bit. We're only in the low 70s in Boise right now. We'll be in the mid to upper 70s tomorrow. We'll wake up to chilly temperatures, though, low 50s for the Treasure Valley and the Magic Valley. Stanley below freezing again tomorrow morning. McCall, you'll wake up to 41 early on. Mountain locations likely won't climb out of the 60s in places like Stanley and McCall with those scattered showers possible. We'll land right around 80 with a partly cloudy to mostly sunny sky in the Treasure Valley, mid 70s in the Magic Valley, where some storm chances do linger for the end of the work week. Look at our weekend. Temperatures in the low 80s. I think Saturday is going to be a stunner. Lots of sunshine, pretty quiet conditions. Sunday, we bring that chance of a storm back into the picture ahead of a cool down for Monday that takes us to the low 70s, but we rebound quickly back up to 80 with sunshine by the middle of next week.
Candlelight vigil for Charlie Kirk at the Idaho Capitol didn't happen without a couple of kerfuffles last night, which is why BPD wants to know who else might be involved. And a Meridian High School employee was fired for posting a video on social media celebrating Kirk being shot. Here's Abby Wilt with the 411.
A scuffle broke out during a vigil for Charlie Kirk at the Idaho Capitol building last night. Boise police say 2 people were arrested on misdemeanor charges. Police say there were several altercations at the vigil, and we can't confirm if the arrests made were from this specific altercation. Police are looking for more people involved in any of the scuffles right now. The West Ada School District fired a Meridian High School employee for posting a video celebrating Kirk's death. West Ada posted this message on social media announcing they terminated an employee for posting a concerning video on social media. West Ada confirmed in an email the video referenced was one circulating online of the employee celebrating Kirk's death. The employee was an assistant cheer coach at Meridian High School and not a teacher. The Boise Police Department is looking for more information after someone damaged the hillside at Camel's Back Reserve. BPD says someone carved designs on both sides of the sand chute. The damage causes both erosion and reverses maintenance of the area that has been several years in the making. ISP's new canine has a name. Meet Crew. He is ISP's newest drug detection dog. ISP says Crew and his handler have already hit the ground running with their training. ISP held a naming contest last week where members of the community were able to vote on a variety of names. Corporal Howard chose Crew's new name from the top 3 votes. That's the 411 on the 208. I'm Abby Wilt.
All right, Holly would like to comment on the Bridging the Gap group in Mountain Home, saying maybe the reason the schools can't handle the mental health crisis is because teachers and administrators are struggling with their own mental health. They work the hardest for almost nothing on top of taking care of other people's kids, she says. Meanwhile, SK in Boise says it is difficult for kids to understand bullying is wrong when they hear parents use bullying language towards neighbors or politicians, or when they see politicians calling opponents names on TV. That's a good point. It seems to be pretty prevalent these days. All right, we have been telling everybody to rescan their TVs today, and if you're watching us now, you've been able to do that. But if you haven't, well, that's a problem, and there's a way to solve that problem. You can call us at 375-7277 tonight. Some of us will be manning the phones and answering your questions on how to rescan your TV. So maybe you won't be like Chris in Mountain Home. I did, and now I get the Playboy channel. Channel 7 doesn't come in at all. Where do you live, Chris? I'll be right there.
Continue with us and watch free now on the KTVB Plus app everywhere you